Greetings, Paul and Susan here. Talking about the second question of the 7 questions that we'll be asking the pastors in Minneapolis. And the second question reads, and this is going to be a short video. It says, do sins committed in the Christian life separate us from our salvation? And in Louisville, almost everybody immediately answered that question, no. But the question is, how would John Calvin answer that question? And you will be reading from our newest publication, It's Not About Election, Why Calvinism is Another Gospel, and you'll be reading from page 20.
By new sins, we continually separate ourselves, as far as we can, from the grace of God. Thus it is that all the saints have need of the daily forgiveness of sins, for this alone keeps us in the family of God. John Calvin, Commentaries on the Catholic Epistles, the Calvin Translation Society, 1855, editor John Owen, page 165, paragraph 4.
All right. So this is what can you say? He says, by new sins we continually separate ourselves as far as we can from the grace of God. And of course, i.e. salvation, okay? Thus it is that all the saints have need of the daily forgiveness of sins. That verifies that grace can be then interpreted as talking about salvation. For this alone keeps us in the family of God. Okay? So Calvin would answer that question, yes. I think most people that claim to be Calvinist would immediately say no to that question. All right. We see the same sort of thing with this quotation by John Piper from his series entitled, How Does the Gospel Save Believers? All right. Well, in this article I wrote about this series of sermons he preached, I asked the question, did you know believers still need to be saved? And if you think about the title, that's what it's saying. How does the gospel save believers? So Piper states in the sermon the following. We are asking the question, this is in regard to the title, we are asking the question, how does the gospel save believers? Not, how does the gospel get people to be believers? So, this is pretty plain, getting back to our problem with Calvinism, in that it's this perpetual daily re-salvation by preaching the gospel to ourselves. Well, I don't think there's a whole lot we can add to that.
Well, we stand around, or sit around, as we are now, stumbling over what more do we have to say in explanation of the answer to the question, and there's nothing more to say. It was said plainly and clearly by John Calvin that we have to have daily salvation in order to remain in the family of God. And there is nothing more to comment on that. If you are a Calvinist, a true Calvinist who follows the doctrine of John Calvin, you would have to follow suit with his doctrine. So if you are a Calvinist and agree with John Calvin, you do not believe in justification as a one-time thing.
And I will conclude by mentioning that in the book, on pages 19 the last paragraph of 19. And then on page 20, immediately, the two paragraphs immediately preceding the quotation we just read, Calvin talks there about this particular, we have citations there from the Calvin Institutes regarding his view that this particular forgiveness can only be sought in the institutional church, and that Reformed elders have the authority to forgive those sins. Shall we say extremely problematic doctrinally. But with that, we will conclude. I will stick in this little comment that, Susan, this in and of itself should be enough for people to reject Calvinism out of hand wholesale. This just lays it naked for the false gospel that it is. And I guess with that, we'll conclude. This is an easy question. And we will address the third question next. All right, everybody, thanks for listening, and have a great God-honoring evening.